Dylan's eyes shifted back to the balcony, giving Desmond a subtle look. Desmond searched the area and reported, "Sir, there's no one here. Call the doctor." Dylan's gaze turned cold. "And tell the hospital to lock down all exits. Not a soul steps foot inside or out without my explicit authorization." "Yes, sir." After the doctor's examination confirmed that only blood had been drawn and nothing else had been done to her, and finally let out a sigh of relief. The attacker's identity was still a mystery, and with her current vulnerable condition, it was hard not to feel afraid. But what puzzled her was why someone would go through so much effort just to draw her blood. However, with a shift in her gaze, Anne's eyes welled up with tears. "Mr. Dillon, there's something I've hesitated to say, but she's really gone too far this time." It was a perfect opportunity to throw dirt on Susie's name, and Anne couldn't let it slip by. Gripping his hand, her tears flowed even harder. "I'm already half dead from the poison. Why won't she leave me alone? Does she think I'm not dying fast enough, so she sends someone in the middle of the night to drain my blood?" Dylan's expression darkened, but he didn't respond directly. He simply said, "We've already found someone who can cure you with an antidote." Anne's eyes flashed briefly with surprise, though she quickly masked it. "But I was told that this poison has no cure." "There's always someone better who can treat you. We've arranged everything with a miracle doctor named Red Falcon, who will help detoxify you. You'll be cured soon." "Red Falcon?" Anne questioned, trying to hide her unease. "Is she really that skilled?" "Yes, Mr. Martin from the North Avenue had a terminal illness, and thanks to her treatment he made a full recovery." Dylan's voice softened. "Don't worry, I'll handle everything." For Anne it was always, "I'll handle everything." For Susie, it was always, "This doesn't concern me." Listening from her hiding spot in the bathroom, Susie had convinced herself she'd be numb to Dylan's tenderness toward Anne. Yet, as his gentle tone drifted through the door, she felt an unexpected pang. Despite everything, it still stung. Tired of eavesdropping, Susie silently opened the window and leaped out. Like a bat in the night, she vanished without a trace so swiftly no one would ever know. At the hospital entrance, growing anxious from waiting, Alan was just about to go in and help when he finally spotted Susie emerging. He hurried out of the car and rushed over, giving her a quick once-over. "Boss, are you okay?" "I've fine." Susie kept walking without stopping. Stop worrying about nothing. However, Alan sensed something was off. Logically, with the kind of influence Susie had, Alan knew he shouldn't be worried. But the ambush 3 years ago had left him deeply scarred. He could never forget the moment he saw her fall off that cliff with his own eyes. For 3 years, Alan had hated himself for not protecting Susie, failing in his duty as her subordinate. So when Susie called to inform him she was still alive, Alan swore that, this time, he would give up his life if necessary to keep her from getting hurt again. He wanted to handle this mission for her, but she wouldn't allow it. From the rearview mirror, Alan glanced at Susie, who had been silent since getting into the car. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something complicated between her and Anne. Alan realized he needed to find someone to discreetly investigate the matter. His gaze hadn't fully returned to the road when Susie caught him staring. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "Boss, did you find out what kind of poison it was?" Susie paused briefly. "It's scarlet veil." Screech. The brakes squealed as Alan slammed on them in shock. "Scarlet veil? But that was your masterpiece. Didn't you destroy it along with the formula 3 years ago?" "There's one last dose with the Harlow family." Claude Harlow. Alan's eyes widened. What kind of grudge could he possibly have against a young girl to go this far? Everyone knows that poison starts off mild, but once it hits again, she'll be no better than a dog in heat. Susie had created the sinister poison to deal with a monster in the past. Even she was confused. The Harlows and Wrights had no bad blood between them. In fact, the Harlows even had business dealings with the Wheeler family. If Claude was behind the poisoning, she'd rule him out as a suspect in the earlier kidnapping. That much was certain. There was no way Claude would have, or could have, let Susie come so close to dying in that explosion. No matter who it was, she was determined to find them. It wasn't about proving her innocence to Dylan. She simply wouldn't swallow that humiliation. Whether it was the kidnapping, the ambush from 3 years ago, or the one responsible for murdering her family, she wasn't going to let any of them off the hook. Her eyes burned with hatred when Alan suddenly handed her the phone. "Boss, Dylan sent a message. He wants to arrange the treatment as soon as possible." Thinking of that deceitful man and his tenderness, she said, "Tell him the deal's off." Earning $200 million was tempting, but what intrigued her more was seeing what would happen to and after the second wave of poisoning hit her. In the corridor outside Anne's hospital room, though Dylan's face remained expressionless, his eyes were as cold as ice. "What did you just say? Repeat it." Desmond, bracing himself, repeated. "Red Falcon said the deal is off." He regretted it now. He never should have mentioned Red Falcon to Dylan that day. This Red Falcon. First she demanded an outrageous sum, and now she was backing out. Didn't she know just how bad Dylan's temper was? Suppressing his rage, Dylan growled, "Give me the phone." Desmond quickly handed it over. Dylan dialed the number. It rang but went unanswered. Once, twice, and again, until his patience wore thin. Finally a soft voice came through. "Sorry, I was busy." Desmond quickly wiped the sweat that had started to drip down his forehead. Thank goodness the call got answered. Otherwise his phone would have met a tragic end. The phone itself wasn't worth much, but the data stored inside was priceless to him. "I'm looking for Red Falcon," Dylan said bluntly. "She's not available. If there's something you need, you can tell me and I'll pass it along." Dylan's eyes narrowed. The price was already agreed upon. Why cancel now? "Please, Mr. Wright, stay calm. It's true that canceling the arrangement on our side is a bit abrupt, and we apologize. But we have our reasons. Do you think we'd walk away from $200 million so easily if we didn't have a reason to? What's the reason? That's not something we can share with you, Mr. Wright. I suggest you find someone else quickly before Miss and misses the best window for treatment." Without waiting for a response, Alan hung up the phone. The next second, smash. Desmond watched in despair as yet another phone met its fate. His heart shattered even more than the phone. "Find her," Dylan ordered, his voice cold. He was determined to see what kind of game she was playing now. Desmond wanted to say, "Easier said than done." Not just Red Falcon, but also Susie, who had been missing without a trace for so long. Why did it seem like every woman around him enjoyed playing hide and seek? Inside the hospital room, and had been listening to the commotion outside. Once she heard Dylan and Desmond leave, she quickly locked the door and pulled out another phone hidden under her pillow. "Dylan found someone to help me get an antidote, but I overheard that they backed out." And sneered. "He keeps saying how great this Red Falcon is, but it seems she's all talk. She must have realized she couldn't actually cure me, so she ran at the last minute. If she created the poison, she definitely knows how to cure it." "So you know her? If she made the poison, why would she suddenly refuse to help?" "I overheard Dylan offering $200 million for her treatment." Since Dylan was willing to spend that much money on her, and could tell just how important she was to Dylan, the truth didn't matter. Once she solidified her place as Dylan's wife, even if he discovered she wasn't his true savior, his feelings for her would shield her from consequences. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before the person finally responded. "Isn't this exactly what you wanted? You'll soon face the second wave of the poison. I hope all your wishes come true. Thanks for the good wishes. Once I've secured Dylan, there'll be plenty of rewards for you." The quickest way to find out if Claude was behind the poisoning was to ask him directly. Even though it seemed unlikely, Susie decided she needed to meet with him. After all, they hadn't seen each other in 3 years. So the first thing she did upon returning to Hillside Villa was to ask Alan to look into Claude's whereabouts. Before she could finish eating an apple, Alan had the information ready. "Claude's on a business trip to Montera. Book a flight." The next morning, Susie boarded a plane bound for Montera. Alan wanted to accompany Susie, but she refused, assigning him other tasks to handle. It had been 3 years since she'd been on a plane, and as she gazed at the clouds outside the window, Susie felt a sense of freedom, like a bird returning to the sky. For those 3 years, her life had revolved entirely around Dylan. In her attempt to be the perfect wife, She barely left the house and spent her days thinking about how to take better care of him. Every morning at 5, she got up to make him breakfast. She hand-washed all his clothes, even his socks and underwear. While he was at work, she counted the minutes, waiting like a lovesick fool for his return. Looking back now, she couldn't believe she had lived like that for 3 years. What on earth had she been thinking? After landing, she went straight to Claude's hotel, only to be told, "Mr. Claude checked out early this morning." Susie was speechless. She had planned on surprising him. Oh well, since she was already here, she might as well treat it like a vacation. Susie spent the day shopping, buying plenty of things before catching her flight back home. She had to admit that being single has its perks. The farther away men were, the better. At the airport, Susie spotted Alan waiting from a distance. "Over here." Her smile froze instantly. "Dylan?" Surrounded by a crowd, Dylan was heading straight in her direction. Susie quickly turned her back in thought. Another unlucky day. It wasn't that she feared him. She just didn't want to see him. And she was pretty sure he didn't want to see her either. To avoid mutual disdain, Susie slipped into the restroom. Dylan scanned the area, but there was no sign of Susie. "Are you sure she was on this flight?" Desmond, sweating profusely, stammered. "I've double-checked several times. Mrs. Wright was definitely on this flight from Montera." Desmond could hardly contain his excitement when he first got the news. Susie's disappearance, Red Falcon's cancellation, and the woman who had infiltrated Anne's hospital room only to escape under full lockdown. Those 3 women had pushed Dylan to the brink of an explosion. Thank goodness there was finally news about Susie. Otherwise, if Dylan exploded, Desmond would be the first casualty. Wiping sweat from his forehead, Desmond said, "I've got people stationed at every exit. We should be able to find her soon." Half an hour later, Dylan's voice turned icy. "Where is she?" Desmond wished he could cut out his own tongue. Sometimes it was best not to speak too soon. He couldn't understand how Susie, an ordinary person, was so good at slipping away. "Desmond, your performance is really slipping. If this keeps up, I think it might be time to send you to South Africa for some additional training," Dylan said coldly before walking off. It had been half an hour, and Susie had probably already made her escape. The fact that she could disappear under these circumstances made it clear that he had seriously underestimated her abilities. Outside the airport, a line of sleek black cars was parked, with the leading one looking particularly impressive. Desmond jogged ahead, opening the door for Dylan, who was just about to step into the car when, out of the corner of his eye, he spotted something. In an instant, Dylan turned, took several swift strides, and grabbed the shoulder of a woman standing nearby. When Dylan spun the woman around to face him, his expression darkened instantly, like a shadow passing over his features. From behind, she had looked strikingly similar to Susie, but her front was a different story. Her appearance was plain, a far cry from Susie's striking beauty. The fact that he'd even momentarily considered Susie attractive only made Dylan's scowl deepen. "Hey, handsome, your approach is pretty unique. I like it," the woman said with a playful smile, leaning toward him. "I live close by. How about we?" "I've got the wrong person," Dylan cut her off. As he stepped back, the woman nearly stumbled but wasn't discouraged. She moved closer again. "Don't be shy. We're both adults here. What's there to hold back?" With a sharp glare, Dylan signaled to Desmond, who quickly stepped in to handle the situation. Once the 2 of them had driven off, Susie slipped into Alan's car, slowly peeling off the human skin mask from her face. She had thought their encounter was a coincidence, but it turned out Dylan had deliberately come looking for her. But why? After all the commotion, what was he trying to achieve? She had already stepped aside. What more could he possibly want? Alan seemed equally puzzled. His curiosity finally got the better of him, and he couldn't help but ask, "Boss, I just found out. Dylan wasn't looking for Red Falcon. He's been trying to find his missing wife." "Yeah, that's me," Susie said calmly. There was no point in hiding it anymore. "You're married?" Alan was visibly stunned. I got married, then divorced." Was it because of Anne? Alan's tone was laced with frustration. The fact that Dylan was willing to spend $200 million on, and was a clear sign of their deep connection. Unable to hold back, Alan muttered a curse under his breath. Like mother, like daughter. She's just as rotten as her mom. Susie immediately caught the significance of his words. You and the Wheeler family. I have nothing to do with the Wheelers, Alan said sharply, gripping the steering wheel. It was a painful chapter of Alan's life, one he had never shared with Susie. He had always planned to take his revenge quietly, without burdening her with his past. After all, Susie had her own scores to settle. Anne's mother, Helena Fox, and his own were cousins. An unexpected tragedy left her an orphan, and his grandmother, moved by sympathy, took Helena in. Little did she know, she was nurturing a wolf in sheep's clothing. On the surface, Helena seemed sweet and caring, but beneath that facade, she was as cold and calculating. When Alan was 8, he walked in on his father, William Wheeler, having an affair with Helena while his mother was away on a business trip, and in his mother's own bed, no less. Not long after, they drove his mother to her death, and tried to burn him alive. He suffered severe burns across most of his body. If it hadn't been for Susie saving him while he was trying to escape, he wouldn't even be alive today. She nursed him back to health, gave him a new face, and turned him into the person he was now. Someone William wouldn't recognize, even if they stood face to face. Susie could tell at a glance that Alan was lying. Since he didn't want to delve deeper into the subject, she didn't push him further. Everyone has their own secrets. She shifted the conversation. Did you take care of what I asked before I left? Alan opened the glove compartment and pulled out a blue folder. The investigation confirms that there's never been any conflict between the Goodwin family and the Turner family, not now or 3 years ago. And there's no way the Goodwins could learn about your real identity. Susie had once been the heiress of the Frosts, the wealthiest family. Years ago, a brutal assassination wiped out her entire family in a single night, from relatives to servants, a total of 30 lives, all murdered. The killers were beyond cruel. Everyone believed that no one from the Frost family survived, unaware that someone had risked their life to save Susie. For years, she had kept her identity hidden. Apart from Alan, Raven Murray, and Riley White, no one else knew who she really was. And none of them would ever betray her. Susie opened the folder, flipping through the pages. She found nothing out of the ordinary. Everything seemed in order. Yet 3 years ago, she distinctly remembered the kidnappers mentioning the Goodwin family. Closing the folder, she tossed it aside casually. You can dodge the first blow, but not the second. Yes, if the Goodwin family is really involved, no matter how powerful they are, they'll pay the price in full, Alan said before asking, what about Claude? Susie leaned back in her chair, her eyes half closed. He returned early. I didn't get a chance to see him. So, are we heading to the Harlow family next? We'll see. After all the running around, Susie was feeling tired. She'd head home for some rest first. Besides, Anne's second wave of poisoning was set for tonight. Susie needed to be well rested to fully enjoy what was about to unfold. That night, at the hospital, Anne had been unusually thirsty since dinner. She drank plenty of water, yet the discomfort only worsened. She knew it was time. The second wave of the poison was hitting. In a panic, she called Dylan. Mr. Dylan, where are you? I feel so awful. She moaned as soon as the line connected, not waiting for a response. But it wasn't Dylan who answered. It was his sister, Diana Wright. Feeling awful? Call a doctor. What's the point of calling my brother? Diana had always disliked Anne. And this is my final warning. My brother is married. Whether it's me or my grandmother, we've both accepted his wife as family. You'd better stay far away from him. And wasn't fond of Diana either. Oh really? You probably don't know that they're divorced, do you? And it was Susie who initiated it. You're lying. Diana snapped, not believing a word. My sister-in-law loves my brother. There's no way she would ever ask for a divorce. If you don't believe me, go ask your brother. And by the way, your dear sister-in-law has run off with some random guy and hasn't been seen since. You witch. Say one more bad word about her, and I'll rip your mouth apart. Diana was in the middle of her furious rant when the phone was snatched away by Dylan. She looked up. Brother, that witchin' just said that your wife wants a divorce. Dylan's face was cold. Watch your manners. My manners? I rather show some manners to a dog than her. Now tell me, is Susie divorcing you or not? That's none of your business, he said, his dark eyes narrowing. What you should be focused on is your exam tomorrow. With that, he turned to leave. Diana chased after him. How can it not concern me? She saved Grandma's life. If it weren't for her, we'd both be orphans by now. You can't be so heartless. No matter what she said, Dylan kept walking without a word. Frustrated, Diana stomped her foot. I'm calling Grandma. Dylan knew Diana would go straight to Grace to complain. He couldn't figure out what spell Susie had cast over both his grandmother and his sister. They adored her to the point of obsession. The only reason he hadn't launched a full search for Susie was to avoid alarming Grace, who was currently enjoying her vacation overseas. But now it seemed the secret was out. With that thought, he redialed Anne's number to find out how she knew about the divorce. Mr. Dylan, Mr. Dylan. The moment the call connected, Anne's pained voice came through. What's wrong? Dylan asked. I feel terrible. I really feel like I'm dying. Please come and save me. Don't panic. I'm on my way. At the hospital. The moment Dylan stepped through the door, Anne threw herself into his arms. She clung to him like a rag doll, trembling against him. Dylan, I feel awful. I feel so terrible. Where does it hurt? Dylan tried to push her away, but instead of letting go, she only clung tighter. Everywhere. And moaned, placing his hand on her chest. Especially here, it feels like bugs crawling under my skin. Itching unbearable. Mr. Dylan, please help me. Her behavior was clearly not normal. I'll call the doctor. No, I don't want a doctor. I want you. And clung to him like a vine, her hands restlessly undoing his shirt buttons. Please, Mr. Dylan, help me. I feel like I'm dying. If you don't help me, I really will die. As her fingers worked to undo the buttons, Dylan grabbed her wrists. Anne, calm down. I can't calm down. She leaned in, trying to kiss him, whispering his name over and over. Mr. Dylan, Mr. Dylan. Just as she was about to succeed, Dylan forcefully pushed her away, sending her sprawling to the floor. His resistance spoke volumes, even if he hadn't said a word. A flicker of coldness flashed in Anne's eyes, but when she looked up again, only sadness remained. Mr. Dylan, do you hate me? Dylan didn't respond, nor did he help her up. Instead, he turned away. I'm calling a doctor. And wasn't about to let him leave. She scrambled to her feet and wrapped herself around him from behind. I told you I don't want a doctor. I want you. Please, Mr. Dylan, take me. And something is clearly wrong with you, Dylan said, his lips pressed into a thin line. You need to see a doctor. No doctor can help me. Only you can save me. As she spoke and began stripping off her own clothes. Please save me. I'm begging you. Just when Anne thought she had succeeded, a sharp pain shot through the back of her head, and everything went black as she crumpled to the floor. Watching and fall unconscious, Susie, who had been hiding in the wardrobe, retracted the silver needle that she had prepared to throw. It wasn't about helping Dylan. It was simply that she couldn't bear to watch the scene unfold. It was the kind of thing that could make her eyes bleed. What she didn't expect was that Dylan would actually, and was supposed to be the woman he loved most. Susie couldn't quite understand why he knocked her out. Dylan scooped Anne up in his arms and laid her back on the hospital bed before pressing the call button for the doctor. When the doctor arrived, Dylan briefly explained what had just happened. Is this related to the poison in her system? After a quick examination, the doctor nodded. Yes, you're right. The poison in Miss Anne's body is highly unusual. The last time the poison flared up, nothing like this happened. Now it suddenly escalated, and who knows what could happen next. We need to detox her as soon as possible. Dylan frowned and thought about what the doctor said. There had been no word from Red Falcon. Forget about tracking her down. She hadn't even answered a single phone call. Desmond had been trying for days, but every attempt had gone unanswered. Detoxing Anne was proving to be no simple task. For the first time, he found himself played by a woman who had him in the palm of her hand. With his jaw tight, Dylan commanded, "For now, find a way to alleviate her symptoms." "That's going to be difficult," the doctor began. "This poison is something I've never encountered before, and I know nothing about it. I'm concerned that if we administer the wrong medication, it could worsen her condition instead of easing it. So, the doctor pressed his lips together before continuing. At this point, the safest way to relieve her symptoms might be for you, Mr. Wright, to help Miss and personally. Absolutely not. Dylan didn't hesitate. If it comes to that, we'll use sedatives. But that might not be safe either. At least that way she'll maintain her dignity, Dylan muttered, his voice low as he looked at and lying unconscious. I can't let her lose her honor. So it wasn't that he wouldn't touch her. He just didn't want her to be ridiculed. Susie's mind flashed back to a day when she had gone to his office to deliver some documents he had left behind at home. His employees had mistaken her for the maid, and from start to finish, he hadn't said a single word to correct them. They had been married for 3 years, and not once had he shown her the respect a wife deserved. Yet, when it came to end, he shielded her at every turn. Susie didn't want to compare, but moments like this always brought it to the surface, no matter how hard she tried. Why was she even watching this pathetic drama? She really should find a way to slip out of here. And as luck would have it, the opportunity presented itself. The doctor left, and moments later Dylan's phone rang. Probably to avoid waking Anne, he stepped out of the room with his phone. Seizing her chance, Susie quietly slipped out of the wardrobe. But just as she thought she'd made her escape, Dylan walked back in. Their eyes locked. The air between them went dead silent. Susie reacted quickly, darting toward the balcony. Dylan was just as fast, his long strides closing the distance. Just as she was about to leap off the balcony, his hand caught her shoulder, yanking her back. Speak. Who sent you? Susie let out a cold laugh. The hospital is a public place. I'm allowed to come and go as I please. Do I need your permission now? She wasn't worried at all about Dylan recognizing her voice. Before going out, she always used a voice-altering agent, not to hide from him specifically, but out of long-standing habit. Keeping her true identity hidden was a necessity. Though she hadn't gone so far as to disguise herself today, just a simple mask, there was no way Dylan would figure it out. She wouldn't give him the chance. So, you think you can just come and go as you please, huh? Dylan's grip on her shoulder tightened, his voice growing colder. Since you're here, why don't you stay for a while? The wind's pretty strong tonight. Careful you don't bite your tongue. Susie swiftly dodged his grip, twisting out of his hold, and in one fluid motion threw a sharp punch directly at him. But Dylan wasn't easy prey either, effortlessly dodging her attack. The two were locked in a fierce exchange, trading blow after blow, kick after kick. After dozens of moves, neither had the upper hand. Dylan chuckled. Not bad. Susie smirked. You're not too shabby yourself, Mr. Wright. But then his eyes flashed dangerously, and he switched tactics, aiming a series of strikes at her abdomen. Realizing his intent, Susie shifted her defenses to protect her midsection. But in an unexpected move, Dylan suddenly diverted his hand, reaching for her mask instead.